Hey there, Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to the OCGFAM Show to you, my YouTube buddies. What's going on? Let me know in the comments. We'll talk about it. So today is part 2 of the viewer questions we started yesterday. Just keeps going. Gets better and better. Some good stuff this time. Talking about Bloom Khaos. Talking about how often to water. Talking about recycling soil. Some good information. I think you'll like it. So watch this. I'm going to show the video and I'll talk to you after. Hey Bob, I've got a Bloom Khaos question. I've been trying to get answered for a while. Well, we've been avoiding it. Bloom Khaos is a product that makes this line compete with any nutrient line because of how it can help stimulate plant growth. What I would like to know is how it should be used in order to maximize growth. The Herculean Harvest is the product that needs to be used with it, but do any of the other calcium products, this is an interesting thing, I was curious about, do any of the other calciums in the line help making sure you don't run into that dreaded calcium deficiency when using Bloom Khaos? Also, should Bloom Khaos be used right after feeding, or should it be used the day after feeding to ensure plants have access to calcium? Hope you and Scott answer this question. So I think he's
talking about foliar feeding on that.
The foliar feeding, yeah. So, but let's get into the first one. Is the Herculean Harvest is the calcium? It's a little different than. I'm just going to shut up. There's other calcium meters and stuff like that.
Well, but let's go to the root of the question.
Lay into it.
Well, I mean, read it.
I did, I thought.
What I would like to know is how should it be used to maximize growth?
Yes.
Well, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to grow them super tall? Are we trying to get them to grow more sites? Are we trying to get them to grow more tops? Are we trying to get them to grow more foliage? Are we trying to get them... So my question back would be...
Well, I would assume more flower. So you're looking for yield. Flower yield.
But you wouldn't be foliar feeding in the bloom for yield.
No, but he's talking... I mean, but you'd be getting ahead of this.
I think we're getting ahead of him. I think that he's asking about to maximize growth during the growth cycle of the plant, not the bloom cycle.
Well, that's when you'd be foliar feeding.
Or watering it in. So there's the question is, if you're trying to get... So Khaos is interesting. It promotes whatever stage you're in. So by saying that, and the application will promote certain different aspects.
Okay.
So if you're foliar feeding Khaos and veg, what you're doing is telling the plant to make cells fast, but not grow. Instead, create flower sites in very short and tight spaces.
Okay.
So your internodal spacing as a foliar feed and veg is really, really tight because you're literally just promoting tops. That's what you do.
Okay, sure.
Now, if you want them to not be this tall going into bloom with 20 flower sites right there, you water it in, and the plant will put that energy into growth, and it will start shooting the growth up, so you get elongated flower sites. And
so in bloom, obviously, I don't have any choice. I'm watering it in. But in veg, I have a choice.
So back to the pre-interruption.
Yes.
Sorry. So, foliar feeding, you get those short, stout, but then when you want them to start elongate before flowering to put on more height because you want to flip them at a stage, then you start watering it in and stop foliar feeding.
Okay.
Because you want them to put all that energy into taking all that nitrogen, all those amino acids, all that calcium, and put it straight up into the top of the plant and grow it up. Okay. Now, when you go into bloom... If you start foliar feeding it again, because now you're setting this new stage, you're in bloom, the plant knows that the light cycles have changed, you start foliar feeding it at the early stages, and it tells the plant it's time to make fruit. So you can speed up the time that it actually shows signs of flowering. Once you get signs of flowering, then you put it back into the flowering, or into the watering, into the root zone, and it starts taking that energy and putting it into the flower development. So whatever the plant is naturally in the stage it's trying to develop, you can manipulate that by using Khaos either as a foliar or as a root drench in those stages.
So are you saying that I would go foliar, then go drench, back to foliar?
If you're trying to grow. Because a lot of guys are in a little closet. You start watering this in, you'll have a problem like Kevin Alley had was, my biggest problem is I run out of room in my tent because they grow past a certain point.
I got you.
So if you kept foliar feeding until you want to switch, you're turning them here and you're going to get the same weight because all the same flower sites are in this much plant as they are in that much plant.
Okay.
So
if I did have the room, I'd probably want those flower sites a little spread out apart, give them some room to
depends
work
if you want to bag up a bunch of this or a bunch of this.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
So it just comes down to, again, though, and then genetics come into play and how everything works. But if, the simple rule is, if you foliar feed, keeps them squatty.
Right.
If you water it in, it elongates.
Okay.
Veg. In Bloom, if you foliar feed at the beginning, it speeds up the flower starting, and when watering in, it puts the calcium into the actual flower for weight.
Would you ever be doing both?
You certainly can, but you better be ready to be feeding more
tons of
calcium.
Okay. So then let's get into that part.
Well, you can use them all. I mean, you can have bone meal in the soil. You can put limestone, oyster shell, azomite, all these mineral powders.
There's all kinds of ways.
Yeah, the downfall is, Demeters will help balance the calcium.
Right.
But it was also going to bring up more magnesium than you ever wanted.
Okay.
So I don't try to put 4 tablespoons of Demeters in because now I'm getting a bunch of chelation happening in the soil and making more stuff more available. And calcium phosphate's the most gentle one, and it's one that we're seeing the most cell production from. So that's where Herculean comes in.
That's the reason that it's what it is to mate up with that Bloom Khaos, and all the other stuff is valuable and about other issues to some extent, not so much about that particular thing. The calcium phosphate is the thing that works best.
It just works best for the development of those cells.
Okay.
The rapid production of those cells. The rest of them will still form the calcium bond in the plant and make the cells happen. However, they also come with things like Persephone has a sulfate. Okay. So now you're putting a lot of sulfur into the plant, which is normally fine. It creates higher terpenes, but at a certain level, it just becomes where it's a masking flavor. So not interested in too much of that.
So the Herculean harvest is not just good at what it does, it's also good at not doing anything else.
It pretty much is. It's great at everything, but doesn't overdo anything.
Okay. Whereas some of these other ones are additive things where they're trying to do something.
They're designed to fix stuff. So if you start adding them, you've got an issue like your CalMag. Well, we don't have magnesium nitrate, calcium nitrate products, so our Demeters is creating that relationship. Well, same as you can put too much magnesium, we can chelate too much magnesium from cocoa fiber.
Okay.
So you can blend them all and reduce the amount of Herc by adding more of everything else, but anything more than double of anything else is really just going to waste.
Okay. Good answer. All right.
And then should it be used right after?
Yeah.
As a foliar, so you can feed and foliar feed the same day. Those react or within the next day. So feed one day, foliar feed the next day. That works too. And it's really like you can foliar feed multiple times in a day after a feeding you shouldn't have any issues if you have fresh loads of calcium in there.
So we're saying the calcium gets in there pretty damn quick. So there's a lot of people I think feel like, well, I'll do this today, and then it's going to be all up in there tomorrow, and then I'm ready to do it. You're saying no, that this is...
Well, because it's not about being up there. It's about bringing it up there. So if it's already up there, then you're screwed again. You're going to be calcium deficient because it's... Once the calcium's immobile in the plant, so it's not like it is just shifting and moving. You're not taking old growth and, when you start to see plants yellowing on the bottom, that means something's not available, usually nitrogen and potassium. So the plant consumes itself and takes those nutrients and remobilizes them up to the top. Calcium can't do that. Once it's parked, it is done. So you always have to have fresh forms of calcium going in to balance that cell growth.
Would I not want to wait too long because I've got my Herc in my soil and I don't want it to lock up before I can get it up?
Oh, yeah. No, ideally you want to do it either the same day or no later than the day after. And you probably have reserves. If you're in the number 4 soil, you're probably good no matter when. It doesn't matter. Right. But if you're running other soils, you might run into one of their additives in their mix is tying up our calcium or our phosphate, and that's creating that calcium deficiency every time you apply the foliar feed.
So, but would you go in there and feed all your plants, drench them, and then foliar feed, boom, right then, and good to go?
Yeah, or foliar feed and feed. As long as I'm doing it all within an hour of themselves, it's not that fast. Okay. You're not going to foliar feed and watch them 2,4-D on you and go away in seconds. You have time. But you wouldn't want to feed them only foliar feed Khaos for a week with no other foods, and you'd be screwed.
Okay. Chris Andrew. Hey guys, I'm a new grower would you say 2 gallons of feed to a 5-gallon pot is sufficient? This is a good question because the answer is probably, I don't know because I don't know what you got going. But can you go into some of the details of that?
Answer it. I dare you. Answer that question.
Well, it depends on how big the plant is. It depends on how wet the soil
is. Are you
is.
in perlite? Are you in gravel? Are you in pure cocoa? Are you in pure peat? There's so many questions to that question.
Well, if you're in regular, let me ask you some questions.
In a 5-gallon pot, I can put in usually 64 to 110 ounces every day and be on the moist side every day.
Okay. Is it this, because I've really only done the soil, if you're doing cocoa and some of these other mediums, do you still look for kind of that's still a little damp, but it's not, you don't want it to totally dry out?
Oh, no, you never want it. If cocoa dries out, you might as well just...
You're done.
Yeah, soak them in pure yucca because that stuff becomes hydrophobic.
So when you're doing some of those other mediums, it's much more important to, let's say Rockwell or something like that. Same thing. Are they all
Let's
about
not ever say Rockwell because you can't use our stuff in Rockwell.
Not going to work.
Yeah, no.
Not going to work.
Don't even email me. It won't work. Here's how well it's going to work.
So why would I do cocoa over doing soil?
What's that?
Why would I do cocoa instead of soil? I mean, it just seems natural to me that I'm going to do the number 4 soil. I've never even thought about doing the cocoa. But some people obviously do. What are they
Control. 100% control because cocoa is complete inert medium. So
it's
there's
not going to hold
in
anything.
There. I mean, it holds water, it holds nutrition, but you're putting in everything it's going to hold.
Everything.
When you buy a potting soil, you don't know if Jim made it, Bob made it, Phil made it, what tractor was on it, what kind of diesel they use. I mean, there's so many variables on their inputs. So you don't know exactly what you're working with because no soil manufacturer is going to tell you exactly what's in their stuff.
So if I don't have access to good soil, I might think cocoa because it's easier to control. It's less of an issue.
You have to control it. It's not easier to control. You just have to be on point. You better know what NPK and all the trace minerals they need because none of it's in there.
Okay.
And it will sustain life. You can charge it with microbes. You can do compost teas. All the same things will work. You're just starting with nothing.
So, but as you go through the process, would it be similar to soil where it does maintain a microbial field and all those things as you're going through?
It's organic material.
It's just that you're starting
with nothing. It comes
inert.
So you're literally starting with a blank white canvas and you're painting a mountainscape. So.
Although it does have salt in it, it can have if it's not washed properly. The cocoa.
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, know your medium.
Yeah.
So if you get it right out of bag and it's 1,200, don't plant in that stuff because it's just pure salt.
So you would slurry test your cocoa before?
Oh hell yeah, we do every time we bring in a container because not all cocoa is the same or processed the same. All our cocoa comes from one farm, and that guy's stuff is awesome. So
still, you check though.
Oh, hell yeah, because we've had batches that come in at 100 parts per million versus most of it comes in at 60. But we've had other companies that we got it from, why we don't do business with other companies, but 1,200, 1,400, 1,600. You know, most cocoa companies out in the industry have these super high ppm mediums that they just chip them right into the bags of soil, they put them out there, and then people don't understand why they're having failures. This brand has always been great. Well, when they buy cocoa on a commodity market, they're getting wherever the commodity's coming from.
They don't have a cocoa farm. they're
not calling the family in India to get it to them. They're either Cuban, Sri Lankan, Indian, Hawaiian. I mean, it comes from all over the globe, and not all of it is well harvested, well cleaned, well washed. So when you read that people wash their cocoa, it generally means they took it, they threw it through a tree chipper, they misted it with a mister bar, and put it right into line flow because that is the most cost-effective and affordable way to do cocoa. But the right way to do cocoa is to slowly hydrate it with rainwater or neutral water, get it so you're not destroying the pith or the tilth of the cocoa.
What it is, the fibers of it.
Yeah, and then press that water out of that and then start with that as a medium. And you know, I honestly believe we're one, if not the only, one of the very few that hydrate their cocoa and slowly and naturally without destroying the cocoa pith.
That's another video I'll link down there. It shows how you do it. You knock them over. You pour the water on them. Yeah. Okay. Seeker of Truth.
But 2 gallons of feed on a 5, that'd be more than sufficient, and
probably
a couple times a day, or a couple times a week. That's all you could do.
Yeah. So, but you're looking for your soil to be not dried out, but to get fairly dry between waterings. And
you don't want to force a watering.
Yeah.
If your plants are wet, that means they didn't want the last watering, so don't give them more.
Just wait.
But if you also are going to drive for some type of yield, some type of like control, then more often you're going to be able to put more feed in there to create more plant.
So you're trying to water it as often as you can to your practical of your situation.
Yeah, it's your situation.
Yeah.
So if literally you don't want to go in every single day, then that method would be just fine because you'd be in there every third or fourth day watering.
Okay. But how big the plant is, I mean, if you got a little...
He said 5-gallon pot.
Well, but you might have a seedling in your 5-gallon pot.
Well, yeah.
You just got to... You've got to use some practicality to
use
look
2
at how
gallons
wet
on
it
a
is.
seedling in a 5-gallon pot. You're not watering again until it's like third week in a flower because it's never going to grow into that moisture. It's too wet.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So, Seeker of Truth says, this is about the soil recycling video. It says, wouldn't it be cheaper and less work just to buy new soil?
Yeah.
Would it be cheaper?
It'd be... depends on where you are. I mean, if you're in Florida, hell no. It's way more affordable to just rebuild your soil or recompost it because it's upwards to like $30 a bag at the store to buy it. Out here on the West Coast, yeah, I mean, you get it for $10 a bag.
Well,
so you just
the
go
other
and buy
thing
more.
is that this was about Tim's video where he has a full-on system of how he recycles it with a bunch of different things.
Gotcha.
So
there's also many different ways to recycle soil.
A lot of us just throw some one shot in there and go.
Oh, like a lot of my bigger farms.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you have literally 80,000 square feet of 100-gallon smart pots filled with soil that you don't want to redo every year.
It's the work of doing it, let alone the work of
getting
the
rid of that,
yeah.
refilling them. No, it'd be way cheaper to walk by and throw a 125-pound bag of one shot and have one guy come behind you with a mini tiller and just go, brrr, done.
So if I'm just growing it at home and I got a couple 5-gallon pots, I mean, if I got a 5-gallon pot, I'm going to recycle. How much one shot would I throw in there? Just
10 ounces.
So not a ton.
No.
Much cheaper than getting a bag of soil.
Oh, it's cheaper, but it's also it comes down to who you are. Are you type A, type B, type C? Because if you're super OCD and you don't want to like ever worry about bugs or ever worry about issues, or you had a problem in the last run, you could be accentuating that problem.
You have a problem.
If you had no problems in the last run, then
you might be getting better.
It really comes down to your comfort zone. If you're not comfortable reusing and composting your soil, and it's cheap for you to buy soil, by all means, your peace of mind is worth something.
Well, and that's been the common practice, hasn't it? To just get new soil each time.
I mean, we encourage no because honestly, we believe our soil, the amount of bone meal we put in there, the amount of oyster shell that's in there, none of that's available. I mean, it's there. Your plants are accessing it, but they'll access it more in the next 16 weeks.
You'll also know what you got with the soil. Especially if you had some other soil that you weren't too happy with that soil, as long as it wasn't buggy. Yeah. You know what you have now, whereas you get a new bag,
most
you might not
other
know
soils have bark in them, so they actually get better because the bark is finally breaking down from all the nutrition you poured on there to have it broken down. So if you're running like Roots Organic soil, then by all means, it gets way better if you reuse it over and over because now it's actually turning back into soil rather than a tree yard.
Okay. A little poke. Just a little poke.
But it is.
There's a lot of factors.
There's a lot of factors, and it really comes down to your comfort zone. If you're not comfortable with situations of pests or problems or issues that way, then always buy new soil. But, if you want to, it is a good way to save. And honestly, a lot of times it's not even putting more one-shot in. I mean, if you're running the Greek regimen, you don't need one shot to rebuild it because you're putting it all in. You can control the deficiencies with the bottles you have.
I got you.
If you want to relieve the cost of how much bottles you use, then reuse your soil with lots of one shot, and that reduces the amount of bottles you need.
But as we're doing with an available nutrient, we are kind of using the soil as a medium more so than a...
It's a medium, but there's no way your plants or your microbes are consuming everything you're giving them at mid-flowering feeding schedule. There's no way they can absorb that much.
So that soil would, in theory...
be charged.
Yeah, and it would never go bad within the scale of human events.
Well, I mean, just shy of a Chernobyl happening next door to your house. Soil has been here before us, and it's going to be here well after us. I mean, we are soil. We came from the earth, and we will become the earth. That is how this works. There's a circle of life, and we all compost back down to mineral form.
That's a happy thought.
It is. It's fucking great. Don't put me in a box with cement and fucking ashes.
Throw me out in the back.
Put my shit and put a redwood seed up my ass and throw me in the forest and make me grow. I want to limb people, little hikers going by.
That's awesome. Okay, that was cool. We sure appreciate Scott doing that. I'm not sure if we're going to have a part 3. We kept talking, but it got a little more candid as we went on. So I'll see if I can edit that down and get some more stuff out of there for you. Just had some more questions. But we'll be back Monday. That's the show for this week. I love you, and I'll see you on Monday. For more information about anything on today's show, go to our website, OCGFAM.com. And if you buy anything while you're there, use the code FAM20. Do not use the code FAMHarvest. Doesn't work. Not sure why. We have to change the code every once in a while. FAM20. Save 20% on everything at OCGFAM.com. The OCGFAM Show. It's pretty good. It happens every day. It's the OCGFAM Show. See you on Monday.